I've been
This
in
week,
the world about 2,000 miles of this.
Halloween.
Actually, on the 18th. We left on the 20th.
Do what?
What they call worker?
A worker?
You say you're gonna come training tomorrow?
Makeup training.
That was too late already. You wanna come train tomorrow night at the Gill Center?
I'm going down there tomorrow night. 6 o'clock.
I can't come.
A Board of Alderman meeting tomorrow night too. We'll be missing that. I can look, I'll watch it.
How is this?
Yeah, and I just
off when you get-
home about 10 minutes. Enough to.
Anyway, I was just saying, if you're really interested, I can use,
I can do it tomorrow night. My wife,
Back in last night to her house. About
fitness, and I can keep my
Queen Cake.
That's where I'll stop by on the way home. I'll probably stop there and eat. I was pulling your leg. I was just pulling your leg. He usually puts a little indication on there what's public hearing and what's not.
Yeah, that's why I'm just double checking.
Walk through that door.
I'm awful happy we have one Halloween pumpkin man. He's celebrating pumpkins.
That I am. I figured I was gonna be, I'd be festive somehow.
Pumpkin man.
I'll be Mr. Miller next year.
I'm gonna go into the sweet potato business next year. Everybody wants to buy sweet potatoes from me. I didn't know that Mississippi was the capital of sweet potatoes. I didn't know it. So next year I'm gonna go into the sweet potato business. Everybody wants to buy them from me.
Go ahead. Come get some from me.
No.
That's just what I called him.
I'm glad I can be everybody's entertainment today. That's what I was hoping for.
That's exactly what I said to him.
She's not gonna be here.
But was she not? Okay. Okay. Look at that, 6 o'clock. We're getting buzzed by our timekeeper over here. He's our official timekeeper. All right, so I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Engelke,
Here.
Commissioner Edner,
Here.
Commissioner Bedell, Commissioner Stokes,
Here.
Commissioner Little. She's absent. Commissioner Mercer.
Here.
Commissioner McGann, here.
All right, if everyone will stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are for the Planning Commission, October 31st, 2022, 6 p.m. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes, and do we have any corrections, comments? If not, do we have a motion? All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Egner,
Yes.
Commissioner Vidal. Commissioner Stokes,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercer,
Yes.
Commissioner McGann, yes. Yes, vote.
All right, minutes approved. All right, we're going to old business. Case number 2096 SDF, a request for a subdivision final plat named DeSoto Commons A-9 commercial subdivision located approximately at 6180 Interstate Boulevard in Horn Lake by Creative Constructions LLC, developer and owner, Houston Engineering PLLC Engineer Company, for land zoned as PUD consisting of approximately 1.7 acres plus or minus. I will turn this over to our planning director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Evening, Planning Commissioners. Thank you to Daniel from IT for helping us along tonight with the visuals and the audio and everything tonight, so appreciate it on that. Yeah, this case was on the agenda for last month, but we had a no-show, and so it was tabled to this month. And I guess before we go any further, I mean, did you get a chance to sign in? Did you did? Okay, all right. I was expecting more people here tonight or whatever to say that to more people to sign in or whatever. And there was packets back there. There's full packets and then the agenda for tonight as well, if anybody needs those. So I don't see anybody here tonight for the same case. I don't know what the sentiment of the Planning Commission is. It's a fairly straightforward case or a plat. It's a one-lot minor subdivision. But if you had questions specifically for someone from that particular development team, they're not here to answer those or address those.
Okay. Well, does anybody have any comments? I mean, I will make a comment. I mean, typically we don't listen to cases unless they're here. So it's whatever the pleasure of the commissioners are. I just know that as we go through these and we start bumping them down to the next month, it's going to make our next month even longer. So however the commissioners want to do it, I just wanted to point that out there that, but the other side is if they're not willing to show up, I don't know what that means for us on that aspect. So anyway, any discussion or any motions, or do we want to go ahead and listen from Chad? All right, go ahead and go forward with it. Oh, wait, go ahead.
I think we really should stick to them being here so we can hear from them, because if we start letting them not be, then nobody gonna show up.
Right.
And I don't wanna start.
I agree with that. Because if they're wanting us to do something, they need to put forth the effort.
Maybe today is because it's Halloween, but still, we just don't wanna go down that road.
All right, then.
And if it takes them 2 months to get on the docket again, then it takes 2 months. That just delays them. It's not our problem. It's their problem for not coming.
Yeah, correct. And what I try to do with all the applicants, unless I just go mindless or mindful or whatever, and I forget, but I try to, let all the applicants know when we have like a staff report or a power presentation for them, and I send that to them. And they're like, in this case where it was tabled last month, I let them know that it was tabled or whatever, and it would be on this month's agenda. And, because they'd had, this is the group of like 3 plats. And you've already considered 2 of them, and they were really a lot of energy put towards the first 2 plats. There was still one lot subdivisions, but this last one, for some reason, there's been a lack of back and forth with staff as of late, just in the last month or so. So I don't know if they're consumed in other issues with the other 2 plats or other items in their lives or what. But
So do we have a motion to table?
I make a motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Okay. Now, do we need to put any time limit or put it as we can fit it into the schedule type motion? Because what I'm saying is I don't want to overstack a month, going into it. So
right now we're looking at 3 cases for the month of November, so it's not all that long of an agenda. So I mean, if you just want to leave it on the table for next month, I'm fine with that. If that's the sentiment of the Planning Commission.
Do we do it for next month? Okay. So a motion to postpone for next month. We have a second. If you're still good with your second.
Yes.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Roll call.
Commissioner Egner,
Yes.
Commissioner Vidal,
Yes?
Commissioner Stokes. Yes. Commissioner Mercer. Commissioner McGann, yes.
Okay, on to new business. Case number 2103, a request for a final plat named Goodman Road C-Store. Is that applicant here?
Everybody went to get Halloween candy.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the commission?
Same.
Make a motion to table case number 10103.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We're going to push it to next month, the timetable? Okay. All right, any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Egner,
Yes.
Commissioner Vidal,
Yes?
Commissioner Stokes,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercer. Commissioner McGann, yes.
All right, case number 2104, a request to zone amendment rezoning from M1 to C4. Is that, okay, so he is here, so we are going to move forward with this one. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much. Okay, so, anyway, so, let me go ahead and finish reading, and we'll call you up here in just a second. Plain commercial at the northeast corner of the intersection of Hurt and Nail West in Horn Lake, AKA 6020 Hurt Road. And it's consisting of 1.42 acres plus or minus. We're going to turn this over to Chad, our planning director.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just go through some of the slides here in the presentation. Hope you had a chance to look those over. I think I got at least a couple of corrections in there that I noticed. But yeah, Daniel's got the vicinity zoning and land use map up there. It shows where the center parcel there with the blue line around it, that's the actual subject property. And then you'll see to the west is the Horn Lake Middle School, which has got the residential 8 type zoning. To the north, there is PUD, planned unit development, and some C1. And then you'll see to the south, both southeast, southwest, and south, the M1, which is the light industrial zoning district for the city. Go ahead and scroll there. So what we've got now is just a couple of field photos that just shows the subject property, which is on that very corner, that northeast corner of Nail Road West and Hurt Road here in town. What I provided in the packet was some information from the zoning ordinance for the city that talks about planned commercial districts, which is the C4 district, and then also light industrial district, which is, of course, the zoning of the property currently. It tells you about kind of what's anticipated or what's anticipated for that type of zoning district within the city's zoning structure. And then here what we see is a list of, these are all the land uses that are permitted by right in the C4 zoning district. I believe there's 53 in all. Now I got to make one change or one correction. I think we had just last month, we had a request on a rezoning, and the question was, well, can you limit or you can condition any of the uses? And my answer was no. But the case then went on to the Board of Aldermen, a few weeks later, and legal counsel advised that, because that same question came up from one of the aldermen, and that was, he gave a different answer, that it could be conditioned. So I've inquired with the city's legal counsel as far as what's the grounds of that. And so there is a court case in the state of Mississippi. It dates back to 1999. It's down in the city of Jackson. But they did condition a particular zoning case down there. So there is a legal precedent within the state. Actually, I don't like the answer because the difficulty it presents to staff is that, let's say, not just this case, any case that would get rezoned, if it would be the prerogative of the Planning Commission and ultimately the Board of Aldermen to limit the number of land uses in some way, shape, or form. When we look at the zoning map, there's no way to tell that. You see one C4 zoning district and you see another one, but one has the full scale of 53 land uses and the other one might be, whatever's less. It might be 20 land uses that are permitted or 28 or just come up with a number. So there's no way to tell that. So I reached out to Rob Winkler at the DeSoto County GIS department, and he says there is a way we would have to amend the zoning map, or he would add a new kind of indicator, so that when we look at the zoning map, we'd see even though we saw in this case 2 C4 zoning districts, one would be the old historic what we've done in the past, but then there would be a different one. Let's say if there was the land uses that were limited in some way, shape, or form, it would be either hatching or X's or stripes or something. It would call us out to the attention. The difficulty for staff is that trying to either find the case file to see what was done when this goes to the alderman. There's probably a way we can tie it in, link it in to the county site now, like we do with a PUD. So in a way, it acts kind of like a PUD because it's kind of a limited, kind of a custom sort of thing, but it's not fully a PUD. So it's a little bit different in that sense. So because in the various states that I've done planning practice, some states you could condition a rezoning, other states you couldn't. So I guess in the case with Mississippi, a rezoning can be conditioned. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. So So there, what you see there is that list of 53 land uses, which they're in different categories. Most of them are in the commercial land use category that are permitted by right if eventually the C4 request was approved. If you could leave it right there, Daniel, that's where I got one of my corrections. It says there, this goes on now to the various points that can be considered with a rezoning request by the city. And so this just goes from Article 10, it's number 5, letter A. And so you see that number 1 there where it says future land use. And so that first paragraph there, I think that's a blurb from an old case. So, because that talks about residential zoning or whatever, and that's really not applicable to either the current zoning of the subject property or what's being requested. Now that second paragraph though is accurate. Other than, well, it says it's accurate as far as the 52 or 53 land uses that are permitted by right. But it talks there about residential zoning as far as on the future land use map. But the future land use map, that's my other correction. That first part of that second paragraph is it actually for this particular parcel in this area of town calls for industrial land uses, which is the zoning of the subject property. So sorry for that error. Then going on to number 2, we see various things from the goals and objectives from the comprehensive plan. I try to find things that are a mix, things that might be of support of any particular case or might not be in support of a particular case. So I won't read through those. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through those prior to the meeting. Other than I will say there on, let's see. Make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Yeah, there on that screen that Daniel's got up there, kind of right in the middle there, it has the lowercase, it's lowercase 6, it's the VI, it's part 5, objective 17, page 12, says commercial and office land use should follow a node or nodal approach adjacent to major road corridor intersections versus a linear or strip development pattern. So that was at least something that was in the comprehensive plan that seems to kind of fit this particular request. And then there's a statement on there about the general economy in relation to the plan. It talks about the different taxation rates for the different types of land uses structured in the state's tax code. Okay, you can, maybe he's already ahead of me. Oh, no, go ahead. There we go. Yeah, go ahead. 4 there with transportation. Obviously, the Hurt Road is a 2-lane paved road. It kind of flares out at the south end there for a turning lane. Right next to the school. And then Nail Road West is a paved road. It's basically right there at that particular intersection. It flares out. It's paved. There's turn lanes and such. So that's a positive feature to the area. For number 5, community facilities, Horn Lake Fire Station number 2 is near the subject parcel. It's about 1.4 miles via highway routes of Highway 51 and Nail Road West. It's 1.5 miles to the Horn Lake City Hall via local road routes. Latimer Park is approximately 0.9 of a mile to the west of the subject property. So we go on to letter B. It's one of the factors of consideration why the existing zone district classification of the property in question is inappropriate or improper. There's a letter of intent which the applicant has supplied where they've tried to address those issues of the factors. It looks like this particular block, if you will, this little square of M1 was part of a larger M1 area, but when the PUD zoning changed last year, it kind of left it by itself there as kind of like an island by itself. But there is M1 zoning across the street to the south where there's a food processing plant. Thank you, Daniel. And we go on to C here. Here it just asks for major economic, physical, or social changes, if any have occurred in the vicinity. That were not anticipated by the comprehensive plan and have substantially altered the basic character of the area. And it looks like when I look at that factor and I have a rezoning or that type of case, what I do is I go back to the the county aerial map system, and I just go through a system of time-lapse photography by the county to see what used to be there, and what's there more recently, and then what's there now. And so it looks like most of the area or the vicinity has not really changed much in 40 years. The middle school has been there for over 40 years, as has the industrial plant across the Nail Road to the south. The last area housing to the west of the subject land was established in the 1990s. The most recent development, as mentioned earlier, is the rezoning of the parcel adjacent and east of the subject parcel. That was rezoned last year to PUD, and it has since been approved for a mini storage type of facility. If you remember that site plan design review case that came before you earlier this year, we're expected to see construction in that potentially later this year. And then item D, demonstrate the public need for the proposed zone district amendment. Again, so there's a letter of intent where the applicant has tried to address that. At least in my opinion, this was kind of a challenge to try to address this particular factor. So it says here, probably the most favorable thing for the request is that it is a small parcel for an M1 zoning district, so it might be kind of hard to actually physically place something on there of use with just the M1 size that's remaining. The C4 zoning seems more appropriate from that particular standpoint. Obviously, rezoning it to commercial may take some pressure off of people that may feel inclined to go to a commercial land use more in the northern part of the town, so it may keep a small base of traffic to the south, therefore relieving a little bit of traffic on some of the roads or routes up to Goodman Road. Okay, so there's a potential or possible motion here. It's the request, as the chair had said, from the M1 to the C4. I won't read it all there, but it's for that 1.42 acres. And I leave it up to the Planning Commission if they want to recommend either approval or denial to the city's Board of Aldermen. That would conclude the presentation unless you have any questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Director Barr?
Chad, once this come back, if somebody decided to put a business there, we still control the carrots of their business, right? Being next to a school.
Well, it depends. You know, like, let's say like one of the listed land uses that are permitted by right, very good question, thank you, in the C4 district is like a liquor store.
Yes.
Or whatever. And so it's been spoken about prior to this meeting that, you know, potentially with the C4, they might put in a convenience store, sell alcoholic, beverages or whatever. But through the city code, it'd be chapter 4, there's a distance that it has that type of use has to be from a school, and there's a couple other categories. So it's 400 feet, that's distance. That's the requirement of minimum separation. This does not meet that. So they wouldn't be able to do a liquor store there. We wouldn't be able to issue a permit or anything like that. So that because of that, that distance requirements through chapter 4 in the city code, that would not be possible there. So.
Any other questions for Director? All right, the applicant, if you would like to come up, state your name and just let us know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ben Womble with Womble Engineering. I am here representing the owner tonight. I think Director Barr did a great job describing what our intent is and our request. If you have any additional questions for me, I'll be glad to try to address those.
Are you already planning to put a business there?
Like I said, I'm representing the owner, so his indication to me is that he is considering like a multi-bay building. He hasn't talked about specific uses, but his request is that, the C4 zoning would allow, additional permitted uses that were not allowed by M1. So, that's his only indication to me was a multi-bay, commercial building. No specific uses have been mentioned.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question maybe for Mr. Barr. Is there rule or regulation regarding distance to a school with regard to e-cigarettes or some kind of vape store?
Very good question. I do not know the answer to that. I would have to research that further to see if there's something either in the city code or something beyond that that would give it a distance or a separation.
You've already indicated that there won't be anything there selling alcohol,
Correct.
so these 4 bays don't really set off any big red flags, but you are going to be near a school.
So,
Yeah, I've got a question. Okay, so there's going to be 4 bays. What would prevent them, according to our regulations, from, if they're like 4 in a row, this one over here that's meets the 400 feet away from the school, what would prevent it from selling alcohol? Is that a question for you?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the specific wording to see if it's from property line to building or property line to property line or building to building. I'd have to look at it specifically to see what it says and then also just measure the distance. At least when I looked at it earlier, when the question was posed to staff, it didn't look like it was possible to meet the 400 feet distance separation. So it looked like it pretty much discounted the entire parcel, but I'd have to go back and check to see, let's say if they put, depending on how they oriented the building on the parcel, let's say it was in the back, and let's say the regulations said it had to be like from front door to front door of the 2 land uses or whatever, maybe there'd be 400 feet worth of space there or not. I just have to go back and reanalyze that.
but you said we could specify what could go in there. Did you not say that? We could
Well,
say no liquor store, no
yeah, I guess the way,
e-cigarette,
yeah, I guess.
word it.
Guess you could, I mean, I guess in a way, if legal counsel said that the state precedent from 99 was limit, you say, different land use categories or something like that, I think you could probably go as specific and say, okay, no alcohol or
No
no.
cigarette.
Yeah, it would just be kind of like a subset, I would think, of maybe like, let's say, retail sales or something like that. So obviously, if we got to Alderman meeting and it didn't pan out or whatever, they'd have to throw it out or have to rework it in some other fashion, I guess, but.
What else?
Real quick, just, Director Barr, if I understood the special conditional use that you're talking about, is that there is usually a time limit that if it doesn't happen, that it reverts back to the existing zoning. Is that correct in what I read and what was given to me? Or did I misread that?
Very, very good question. Excuse me. No, I mean, when I practiced planning in another state, they would have a time frame, and if a particular applicant on, let's say, a rezoning question didn't meet they were called performance conditions, then it could go back for like a reversion hearing. That's when I was in Arizona. That was kind of standard practice after 2 years. If conditions such as that were not met. In this particular case, I'm gathering that, at least my understanding from the 99 case is that what that would give the city latitude to operate under would be, let's say we got this list of 53 land uses, and let's say there was some there that you specifically didn't want to have happen. You could say exclude this or exclude that or whatever. But they would be excluded permanently if eventually the rezoning was approved.
Any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Thank you very much. Does anybody like to speak? Mr. Miller?
My name is Francis J. Miller, resident Ward 5, a voting resident, Ward 5, City of Horn Lake, 14 years. May I ask the request person, and the answer is these 4 bays supposed to generate sales tax, or is it a corporate or a commercial entity that does not generate sales tax? Do we know that, or can we ask that?
You can just sit there. Is it?
Yeah. so it could be more than 4 bays. Okay, so your intention is if it's 2 bays, 3 bays, 4, 5 bays, all the bays you intend to be generating sales tax in whatever is going on in whatever bays are there. Is that what you're saying is your intent? Okay, then the other thing I feel very strongly on is not to tie up the legal work that it requires the planning director or the city in getting whatever decision you make to get that in the official records of the county or the zoning or the work that it requires. I really don't want to see that happen with the intent that we don't know if liquor is going to get there or not. They have no intention of liquor, but we tie up all of this legal work to make sure there isn't liquor. I don't want to go that route, but I'm just a citizen.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Do we have any other questions or comments? Do we have?
I'd like to make a comment. I feel like the Board of Aldermen opened this trap door on us with regard to 53 and being able to cherry pick them. But since they did, then it really gives us, in another sense, greater latitude to approve things and go forward. With that in mind, and thought that the question that the chairman put to you with regard to time limits, this is not a conditional use request.
Yeah, correct. The zoning, if it eventually was approved, would just be good for.
This would be good from now on unless it came in front of the board again and re-decided.
That's correct.
I want to add a comment too. I think Mr. McGon had a good one. That if each of those 4 units, 3 of them are, can't have liquor stores, but then the one at the end could. I think we want to look out for that too, just to make sure that right there next to the middle school, we're not selling any tobacco products or alcohol.
That's why we're gonna put it in when we approve it, that there are not, no tobacco or alcohol product is allowed.
That's correct.
We're gonna make sure that it's specified in there, so they can't put it nowhere on the property.
That's correct.
That's the understanding.
Any other questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
I make the motion. After reviewing the request for zoning amendment, rezoning from the M1 Light Industrial District, C4 Planned Commercial District, to the northeast corner of the intersection of First Road and Nail Road West in Horn Lake, aka 6020 First Road, by Amin Nehani, applicant and owner, Wambley Engineering, representative, owner, consisted of 1.42 acres plus. Commission recommends approval to the City Board of Aldermen. Regardless of the direction of one motion, the planning commission should substantiate its relative reasoning from the city's comprehensive plan with this condition: no alcohol or tobacco product, including e-cigarette, is allowed on the property, on the premise.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second? We have a motion to accept, to approve, with the limitation of no alcohol, no tobacco or vapor sales next to the middle school. We have a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Egner,
Yes.
Commissioner Vidal, Commissioner Stokes, Commissioner Mercer, Commissioner McGann, yes. Motion passes.
All right.
If I just may interject, then I'd be trying to target this particular case going to the aldermen for their November 15th meeting.
All right, next case number 2105, a conditional use for seasonal firework tent. Is that applicant here? Okay. All right, so our next case, 2105, conditional use or request for conditional use at 2496 Goodman Road West by Deborah Glenn, landowner, for a seasonal fireworks tent on land consisting of 2 parcels for a total of 1.25 acres plus or minus. The subject parcel are zone C3's general commercial district by the city of Horn Lake. Turn this over to our director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, this is a shifting of gears, if you will, since that last case, well, the very first case, well, the cases that you didn't consider were the subdivision, final plats. And then the last one was a rezoning case, and so this is a conditional use, so, it's a little bit of a different, type of case. So, what Daniel's got up there is the zoning vicinity map. You can see the subject property highlighted there with the blue box or blue line. And the zoning to the north is PUD, that planned unit development. And then there's also C4 zoning, on both sides of Hurt Road. And then to the south, on the south side of Mississippi Route 302 and Goodman Road West is C3 zoning. The subject property is C3 zoned. And then to the west of it is C4 zoning. So that would be the area zonings in that particular part of town. So what we see here is a couple of slides depicting the 2 properties that we'd be working in conjunction in together for the proposed land use. They're each kind of highlighted with the red line there. The west parcel, which is the smaller one, would be intended for the parking for the land use. And then if you could move to the next slide there. This is the larger parcel, the one, it's the eastern parcel of the 2. It's kind of an upside L-shaped parcel. This would be actually where the proposed fireworks tent would be located. And so then the 2 parcels would basically act together as one, the parking to fulfill for the proposed retail sales there. Okay, moving on. So if you remember from the zoning ordinance, with a conditional use, there's 6 factors that the planning commission can consider when they're recommending action to the board of aldermen. The first one is A here, substantially increased traffic hazards or congestions. And so the applicant there has addressed that. And staff, we basically would concur, this part of town, Goodman Road just got resurfaced, and it's 5 lanes. It's got 2 lanes eastbound, 2 lanes westbound with a center turn lane. And then the property also has access over to Hurt Road as well. So we're suspecting, since it's a seasonal type of retail use, that the width and the traffic that are already there on the road should be able to handle the traffic in and out of this particular request. Moving on to B. Substantially increased fire hazards. So it's a positive that the use is intended to be established per city fire code. And the city does actually have some wording, I think it's in chapter 16 of the city code about fireworks stands, the seasonal fireworks stands, when they can be established, if they're allowed, if they're permitted through a conditional use, as far as when they can sell the product and when they have to come down, and there's lots of things there that are prescripted, if you will. But obviously, anytime you have fireworks, you're going to have somewhat of a fire hazard. I mean, it's different than if you had, I don't know, if you just had a regular building. I mean, I guess anything can build, but I don't know if you've ever seen the video clips, in China, where the fireworks factory blew up, and it, and so obviously there's always that potential, and hopefully that would never happen. So I feel I can't not address it in some way, shape, or form. But obviously it would have to be established to building code. That would be inspected by the city inspector, those types of things, if it was allowed to be there. So what I did is I located the local fire hydrants. There's fire hydrants that are located 575 feet west of the east side subject property. and then about 200 feet northeast of the larger reversed L-shaped parcel. So there are fire hydrants in the area if they would be needed. And I just heard Fire Chief today that he says that on all their fire trucks, they have at least 1,000 feet of hose. And they can go longer than that if they need to, but all the fire response trucks have at least 1,000 feet of hose. Going on to item C, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. You see the response there from the applicant in the packet. Appears that the request is similar in nature to other land uses, either allowed by right, either in the city's C3 or C4 zoning district. Looks like with the fireworks, the city has set a higher standard because of its nature, just to make sure that things are carried out in a particular way. Moving on to item D. Adversely affect the general welfare of the city. You can see the answer there supplied by the applicant. And obviously, as I stated earlier, there's the largest concern staff is always for the potential of an explosion or similar event. It's good that a positive feature that fire hydrants are nearby, not where they're either absent or a long distance away. It's also that it's advantageous that it's a seasonal use. It's not like a total use that's there permanently. What's proposed is there would be shared parking on the western parcel of the two parcels involved. This is the current pattern now for businesses existing at 2500, 2508, and 2510 Goodman Road West. Then item E, the question is here, would it overtax public utilities or community facilities? And you can see the response there from the applicant. The staff response is the requested land use should not overtax the public utility systems or community facilities. It would not be connected to public water, public sewer. It's just a temporary kind of a seasonal use. And then the last factor here is letter F, be in conflict with anything in the comprehensive plan. Nothing really specific from the applicant here. I've tried to pull out a few things from the comprehensive plan. Obviously, where it says under number 2 there, general economy, it refers a person back to future land uses. And then under community facilities, there's nothing specific in support or against the proposed land use in this form for this section of the plan. So we get to the last slide. So then there's a possible motion. I won't read it here, but it involves the parcel IDs, a total of 1.25 acres. It's case 2105. It would be for a conditional use for the seasonal fireworks. And so it'd be up to the Planning Commission either recommend approval or denial. If you'd be recommending approval, staff is suggesting two conditions. Number 1, the owner/applicant shall abide by all City of Horn Lake requirements for fireworks sales per the city's code. I probably would strike number 2. Yeah, I put it in there to meet landscaping code, but really since it's a temporary use, to put in permanent landscaping, considering, let's say, they go out a few years, and then they want to change it, and somebody wants to come in and build a permanent feature there, but then somebody's already made an allocation for landscaping. I don't know if that's the wisest tack there. So it's there, I guess, in case if you need it or want it. I guess at this point, after second thought, I probably would just remove it. That's just my thought. So that would conclude the presentation unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions for Director Barr?
Mr. Barr, on a temporary use item like this, is there any requirement for the development of the property at all? The reason I ask this question is the northern part of that lot is tall, dead grass already. And it goes all the way up to the property line of that house and that wooden fence, the house being to the north and the wooden fence being to the east. And I'm not expecting him to have a fire. I'm expecting him to be like aboard ship. A fire would be like the worst thing you could have. But still, if there was, that grass would be tender for, fire to spread. And I was just wondering if there was any preparation is required to do in order to get this lot ready for a temporary use.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there'd be a logical nexus there if you wanted to place a condition that, prior to establishing the use, if it gets approved, that it would be mowed to a very short, size so that the vegetation there would be minimal for any type of fire or combustion. I think they were planning on putting in some gravel as a base for where the people were gonna walk and set up the product, that sort of thing. But that would be a question you could present to the representative of the owner.
Any other questions for Director Barr? All right, the applicant will come up, just state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Prentice Mitchell. I'm a representative for MIM LLC. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Go ahead with your presentation.
So, to answer your question, there is already gravel laid out in the first portion of the lot, the usable lot. I am, in the very near future, going to fill out the rest of that lot with gravel to eliminate grass in the entire area, which would eliminate your concern of a potential fire happening there. Chad did a great, Mr. Barr did a great presentation. I'll just go over the same thing basically. We both know this is for already C3 commercial uses. I outlined that black box of exactly where everything is going to be at, so there won't be any confusion. There's no intention of having fireworks sales all the way to the back, the northern end of that lot. There is a required 10-foot buffer, but I am planning to have more than a 10-foot buffer to the back of that lot. The front of it, Mr. Barr, he said that landscaping was not necessary, but I do plan on having some moderate landscaping in the front, the south part of it facing Goodman, just to have it more aesthetically pleasing. And of course, the parking, that is a primary parking for the second lot, well, lot number one. 2500 Goodman is actually using my lot as overflow. So my lot would be primary parking. Right now, there are 2 ADA parking spaces. I'm going to increase it to 5. I think it's only 1 required per 200 feet. I'm going to increase it to 5. The entrance, as you can't really see it, but it's in green. That's where people are going to come in. That's where they're going to park. And of course, there's already lighting there. And yeah, if you have any questions for me, this will be my second location. The first location I've already had down at Goodman and Horn Lake Road. So I've been there 3 years. No problem, no complaints. I abide by the law. I'm a Horn Lake resident, pay taxes here, go to school here, my kids do. So I appreciate your vote. If you have any questions for me, let me know.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
You had a position, space already that you're occupying, where was it again? I didn't hear it.
Right, next to the Walmart gas station at Goodman and Horn Lake Road.
Oh, okay.
Next to,
And that open field there.
yes, sir.
Are you on the same side as Walmart is, or are you across the road, directly from them?
I'm across from the Walmart. I'm next to, I guess, Captain D's.
Yeah, okay, so you're up
I'm up on the hill, yes, yes, sir.
You've been there for, I know, 10 or 12 years.
No, no.
But
There's been a firecracker place there for that long, because in 2005, when I was here before, there was one there, one across the road in the lot, things that Walmart's on, and there was one up behind the, on Interstate Road, right behind the, chicken place.
No, sir, I've been there 3 years. I'm sorry. Yes, sir, I'm sorry if you,
Someone else said it the other time.
obviously, yes, sir.
There's another one that's in place behind the McDonald's.
Yes, that's not me. That's another gentleman.
I was just saying
Okay, yes, sir. Well, this, yeah, of course, I understand.
I didn't know, there's been places, I think in about 6 or 7 places, that's been fireworks since 2005.
Yes, sir. And this location is gonna replace where I'm currently at, so I won't have two, I will only have one.
I didn't know how many it's gonna have, I know that there's that many there, or going to be there before the end of the year, and, I didn't know how many of them.
Yes, sir.
So, do we have any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing, so we're going to open it up to the public. Mr. Miller?
This time, I want every word I said go to the public and to you folks. First of all, my name is Francis J. Miller, voting resident of Ward 5 of the City of Horn Lake for 14 years. First statement, I am going to back Alderman Jackie Bosick, who has been fighting fireworks, fire tents, fire sales, fires since the man got elected. He brought up the fact that that house burnt down in his ward with kids that burnt that poor man's house down. He had no insurance or anything. It was never rebuilt because he had no money. On my own street last year, kids shot fireworks, and I watched them do it and didn't know the lady's car caught on fire. Her house, she wasn't even home. It didn't catch it right away. It smothered. That happened, of course. She's still trying to get money from insurance back. That's 2 cases I know of. But I back Alderman Jackie Bosick. Under no circumstances do we grant any more conditional uses for fire tents, fireworks in this city than we already have. I also know, and I'm not going to mention names there, I know 2 other aldermen that are going to back what I said, but I'm not sure if they would change their mind. I know Jackie Bosick won, and I want Jackie Bosick to know there's one citizen in this city backing him to the hilt. No more fireworks, no more houses burnt down, no more conditional uses for fireworks in City of Horn Lake. If I have anything to say for it, I want to be quoted.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Do we have any other questions or comments? All right, public hearing's closed. Anything?
I respect what Mr. Miller's saying, but the man or the people selling the fireworks, responsible for kids burning your houses down.
Wait, you had your moment, sir.
I live in Ward 4. I've lived there since 2005. And every 4th of July, New Year's, Christmas Day, or any other day, I can go out my house in the street, and I can see fireworks flying everywhere, and the noise is up to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But there's still no fires have been started by those fireworks. It's the parents' fault if they let their kids shoot fireworks in the wrong place and are not supervised. Because a firecracker can blow your hand off. And if you're not supervised by an adult, they shouldn't have them anyway.
So the public hearing has been closed. You'll have to.
He addressed me. I am going to answer him.
He was making the statement, Mr. Miller. He did not address you, sir. I'm gonna ask you to sit
What do you
down.
want me to do, look up in the air?
I'm gonna ask you to sit down, Mr. Miller.
Honor your request.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Motion? I review the application case number 2105, conditional use, a request for a conditional use at 2496 Eleven Road West. Deborah Glenn, landowner, a seasonal fireworks tent on land consisting of 2 parcels. Was given of a total City's Board of Aldermen with the following conditions. One, we can take, condition number one and scratch it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes. I would like to add an additional condition that he stated he would put the gravel in, but I would like that to be one of the conditions on this approval, to make sure that that gravel does go down, in order to eliminate that type of fire hazard with that dry grass.
Are you okay with the condition?
Yes.
All right, and you're okay with the second? All right, any other discussion?
I have a question. Didn't we pass something, or the alderman passed something years ago about notifications that's supposed to be handed out to each person that
That is
purchased?
in the ordinance. That's what number one covers.
Okay, and so that's something that he has to agree with?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Egner,
Yes.
Commissioner Vidal,
Yes.
Commissioner Stokes, Commissioner Mercer,
Yes.
Commissioner McGinn, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Sir, I see you back there in the back. Which case are you here for? Not you.
This case will also go to November the 14th, excuse me, November 15th.
Is that case number 2103? I believe it is.
I was busy with the other gentleman. Could you?
It's at the Allen Road.
That was the C-store.
Yes, that was a plat. That was tabled, that particular table, because there was a no-show here.
Are you here as the applicant or just as a public person?
Okay.
Well, it's up to what the commissioners want. We had tabled that because we started at 6 and there was nobody here when we called for that case number. So the commissioners, do we want to pull that back up, or do y'all still want to leave it tabled for next?
We can go ahead.
I'd like to move that we pull that back up, get it
That's easy.
taken care of tonight.
Okay, we got a second, okay? Then, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll go back to case number 2103, a request for the subdivision final plat named Goodman Road C-Store, has one lot, commercial subdivision located approximately at 4761 Goodman Road West. That's the unofficial address in Horn Lake. It's consisting of approximately 4.5 acres plus or minus. The subject parcel is currently zoned C4, and I will let Director Barr take this over.
All right, thank you. Before I say anything or whatever, no, I didn't get who made the motion and the second to take it from the
The
table.
motion was from Commissioner Egner, and then the second was Commissioner Mercer.
All right, thank you. Okay. Yes, those first, 2 or 3 slides basically just state that this is a minor subdivision by definition in the city's subdivision regulations, because it consists of no more than 3 lots. And it doesn't appear to trigger any public improvements, like a new road or public sewer, public water mains being extended, those types of things. So Daniel has moved on to the vicinity and area zoning map on the slide above there. As stated earlier, the subject property is zone C4. Is there any 100-year floodplain at play? And that answer is no, so that's good. Property actually is kind of on a hill a little bit. The size of the parcel is the 4.58 acres, and as stated earlier, the proposed number of lots is just 1. Public water supplier would be the Walls Water Association, and then the sanitary sewer provider would be the city of Horn Lake. You can see the area zonings there. Basically, it's the A-R, that agricultural residential type zoning, both, I guess, not just both, but to all directions, to the north, to the east, to the south, and west of the subject property. On this particular slide, you can see the plat layout. Right now, I think there's like 3 parcels there, and this would help consolidate it into one basically unified parcel. We'll go to the next slide here. So now we start to get into some of the specifics from the city's subdivision regulations as far as things to look that proposed plats meet or not. And so here is from section 3458, which deals with easements. So there were some easements that were provided on the north side of the plat. But staff comment here is that the 10 feet wide rear, 5 feet wide side, and then 10 feet front utility easements are called for per the subdivision regulations. So we'd ask that the plat be revised to meet those standards. So I just kind of called those out with that particular slide on the orange kind of ovals, if you will, and those arrows. So on this slide, oh, thank you, Daniel. On this one here, this has to deal with the general suitability, as I like to call it. It's kind of like a planning double check, if you will. And what it says here is the standard: the planning commission may reject a subdivision if it is not in keeping with the general character of the development of the area. So what I try to do is just put the surrounding zoning and land uses. I kind of stated that earlier in one of the earlier slides. It's exclusively that A-R zoning in all directions. To the north, across the road there is naturally occurring trees and vegetation. There's 7 single-family residential uses to the south, and there's, depending on where you would cut the cutoff line for your measure the distance, 2 to 3 single-family residential units to the east. And to the west, there's, again, naturally occurring trees and vegetations, and then a few residences. So what we have here is a few field photo slides. I've tried to label some things that are out there. This is taken, oh, there you go. Yeah, thank you. This is looking north down Allen Drive. You see Goodman Road there off. It's basically a T intersection. And the subject property is located on the left-hand side. And there's an existing sewer lift station on that particular location. This here is looking west across Allen Drive at the subject property. You can see Allen Drive and Goodman Road both labeled there. This is looking south-southwest across Goodman Road at the subject property. Next slide. Here we go. And this is looking more south across Goodman Road at the subject property. You can see some existing entrance points there. I don't know if there used to be historically houses or something there. I don't know if they're conforming or non-conforming to MDOT standards or not. And then this slide is looking west down Goodman Road with the subject property at the left side of the picture. So what these slides do, I won't get into them in great detail. I'll probably just go to the summary slide here in a moment. But these basically pick out other points of the city subdivision regulations that we review each case on to see if they're met or not met, or if things need to be revised, that sort of thing. So just keep sliding through. Let's go to the last slide. There we go. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Daniel. So we've got a possible motion here. Of case number 2103, it's for a subdivision final plat named Goodman Road C-Store for one lot commercial subdivision located at approximately 4761 Goodman Road West. That particular address is unofficial and unassigned by the county. In Horn Lake by Aman Devji, applicant and contract purchaser, Dash Sidhu, current landowner, Rand Management, the developer, and John Granberry, the engineer. As I stated earlier, consisting of 4.5 acres plus or minus, with subject parcel being currently zoned as C4 planned commercial district. And then you'd have that potential motion there with, if you'd be recommending approval of it, some suggested conditions. I'll read those just for clarification. Letter A, revise the plat to show 5 feet wide side yard utility easements and 10 feet wide rear yard utility easements. B, clarify on the plat of how drainage will be handled via the subdivision plat, whether that's planned a detention pond or if it's, or what. Letter C, add a note of the requirement to install sidewalks to the plat per city standards. D, change the public water provider to the Walls Water Association Incorporated, and that would be in the notes section of the plat, and add the location of public water and sanitary sewer lines to the plat. And then item E, add a note that the development will adhere to city adopted stormwater drainage control, erosion, and sediment control standards. And that would conclude the presentation.
Thank you, Director. All right, do we have any questions for Director Barr? All right, applicant, if you will come up here and state your name and just, and then you go ahead and go with your presentation.
Jim Crowley with Keller Williams Realty, and I'm representing the applicant and management. Found out at the last minute John Granberry could not be here, so here I am. He's the engineer, and he told me that all we were doing tonight was, I guess, trying to find out if we could combine these lots, and that's all we were doing. Is that not correct?
Yeah, basically, as I see it here, this would, if it go through and in the end get recorded, it would basically consolidate it into one unitized unit of ownership.
Eventually, my client wants to have a C-store, restaurant, coffee shop, and I think they're now trying to do a little bit of redesign and adding a little dog park over to the other side. But right now, tonight, I think all we're doing is trying to combine the lots.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Are we aware if these conditions, you just said they have been met or they have been revised?
Good question, Commissioner Vidal. I believe actually when, in dealing with Mr., what's his name? Granberry? Yeah, Granberry. Actually, he's, I think, because we've been processing this case for a little bit of time, but I've mentioned some of these things to him, and I think he's actually already addressed some of them. I would still leave them on there if you feel inclined to recommend approval to the board, but I think he's been working to address them, yes.
Any other questions? All right. Do we have a motion?
After review of the application case number 2103, a request for a subdivision final plat named Goodman Road C-Store for a one-lot commercial subdivision located approximately at 4761 Goodman Road West in Horn Lake by Amanda DeVille, something like that. Application and contract purchaser, Dash, current landowner, Rand Management, developer, and John Granberry, P.E., engineer, consisting of 4.58 acres plus or minus, with the subject parcel being currently zoned as C4, Planned Commercial District. The Horn Lake Planning Commission recommends approval of the request to the Board of Aldermen with the following conditions attached to it, A through E.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Sorry. Commissioner Egner,
Yes.
Commissioner Vidal,
Yes.
Commissioner Stokes, Commissioner Mercer, Commissioner McGann, yes. Motion passes.
All right, so now we'll go on to other business. A, planning department hiring personnel changes, and B, comprehensive update. I'll let Mr. Barr take that over real quickly.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, under the planning department, we continue to go through changes almost by the week, really, in the department. The city has hired 2 new code enforcement officers, so that brings us up to 4.5. It fully staffs that particular opening or those positions. They've been with the city about, about 7 to 10 days or so, something like that. They seem to be working out fine. We haven't turned them loose yet because I want to make sure that they get protocol and what they need to do and how they need to do it properly. So we're probably another, maybe a week or two before we would turn them loose, where they'd all be going out independently. Right now, what they've been teaming up with is the existing code enforcement officers to kind of, to basically train, and that seems to be working pretty well. We've had some difficulties with just some administrative stuff, like the fuel man cards, as far as how they refill the vehicles. We were supposed to have those cards that came over from Fuel Man, because they were before run through the police department. They were supposed to be to us by like October 4th. We did get like 8 or 9 new cards last week, but at least the first use of the first card didn't work. So we're just trying to make do on that to keep the vehicles fueled. So that's on the code enforcement side. We're still trying to staff the stormwater administrator type position. That'll be on the alderman agenda. I think it's under consent agenda tomorrow. We're going to change the job description a little bit on that, because it does require some level of licensing, whatever, and so we're, instead of requiring that right out the gate, we're going to have that where it's obtainable by the person, whoever would be hired, like within a year's time or so. So maybe that would open up the pool of applicants for that particular position. The current office manager, that's on the consent agenda as well. It will be transitioning to the rental housing coordinator position. That'll be effective, I think, about November 13th or so. So what that does, that leaves the front counter, that position open, and so the city is advertising for that as well. So that's kind of where we're at from a staffing standpoint. Oh, there's one more thing. The planning intern, which I think Andrew was here and he spoke, because he had his trip to Italy. He had some planning takeaways on that. We did offer him the planner 1 position, and he did accept that, and so that's been approved. So he started at planner 1, a week or so ago, or whatever. Right now, he's really busy with class. He won't be probably done with class till next May or so. So he's basically working 2.5 days a week for us. So that's limiting somewhat like what I can turn over to him. But he's working hard though, nonetheless. And we're glad to have him on staff, as we are everybody really. So that's the planning department hirings and personnel changes. The comprehensive plan, Andrew and I, we have a meeting. It'll be a virtual meeting Wednesday morning with the Orion Planning Group. It'll be, the fellow's name is Bert Kuykendall, and that'll be to discuss the comprehensive plan, to start that process, finally, at last, or whatever. And so we're looking forward to that meeting, and so I think the advisory group, which I've kind of assembled over the spring and summer, whatever. I know they've probably been waiting patiently. They probably wondered what happened. You know, they probably thought it just fell into a hole or whatever. But I think we'll be trying to employ their services in some way, shape, or form here in the next few months, if not weeks or whatever. Probably next months. That's probably a better assessment. So yeah, those are the changes that are happening in the planning department. We're very busy. We're looking at, well, as I said earlier, we're looking at 3 cases for November. Obviously, the one still stayed on the table, so that'll be 4. And then that November meeting is November the 28th, which is after Thanksgiving. If you remember, if you had made the change earlier in the year to move the December Planning Commission meeting up a week, so that'll be December the 19th, that Monday evening, December the 19th for the December Planning Commission meeting date. So that'd be all I have to say. I think I did, one last thing, it's not on here, I did attend the state APA conference. They kind of do a dual thing. When I say they, it's between the state of Mississippi chapter of the APA and the Alabama. So I went to Alabama last week, so I was down there about 3.5 days. Had some real decent sessions there. I don't know if you want to hear about those tonight or some other time. I will talk about them tomorrow night at the alderman meeting if they want me to. So, but they talked, the main 4 takeaways were about moratoriums, and I don't have my sheet with me, darn it. And then moratoriums, whether to do those or not. Climate change, had an interesting thing, a guy that spoke about climate change. He was the state of Alabama climatologist. He gave a very interesting presentation. And then there was the other 2 factors was, about signage. There's been some recent Supreme Court action. Actually, this year, it's a case called Austin versus Reagan out of the state of Texas. It has to do with electronic billboards and that sort of thing. So, and then they also went back and revisited the Reed decision back from 2015, I believe it was, out in Arizona. It was Gilbert, was it Reed? It was Reed versus Gilbert. And that was kind of a landmark case for signage in the United States. And so they talked about that quite a bit. That was a good session on that. Because signage probably is, at least in my opinion, one of the most difficult parts of planning the whole thing about planning and zoning, that whole aura, or the whole area is one of the most difficult to administer. So we basically the takeaway is we'll probably need to look at making a few more changes to our sign regulations, just so it's a little bit more in compliance with Reed. It's okay now, but I think it could be a little bit sharper and cleaner. So, and I'm trying to think of the fourth takeaway. So there was signage, moratoriums, climate change, and, trails. They had a good session there about the benefits of trails. I don't know if you've been engaged, but the city's been trying to work on the north side to establish with the Native Americans there basically a park, a large kind of you could almost say a regional-sized park. I'm assuming that the trails would be a part of that, and hopefully they would do that, because basically what we saw down there in South Alabama is that some of the parks had done such a good job with their trail system, it was actually attracting people to move there. It was that much of a magnet, it was that unique, it was done very nicely. So that they can be not only can they provide, health benefits for the people that utilize it in lots of different ways, but they can also just provide economic benefits, because you have people that ride their bikes, or they have a Segway, or whatever trails are built for. You have that kind of economy that goes with those sorts of things. But down there, their trails were so nice. They had a lot of quadriplegics and those types of individuals that they moved down there because that was some place that they could exercise regularly. It was a benefit to that. So that was the fourth takeaway.
Well, we appreciate that update.
Okay, I have two questions. So the code enforcer, they're gonna be assigned specific area, right, each?
Good question. Basically, at this point, I was gonna kind of just turn them loose to all over the city, to where as they come up, because as we get complaints or as they see stuff, I just do an alternating thing. Now that we have 4, when we turn the other 2 loose or whatever, one comes in, person A gets it, then B, C, D, and then back to A. That's kind of how I was doing it. The reason behind that thought process is that way they can go anywhere in town. If they need to handle a housing rental issue, they can tackle that. If they need to tackle a commercial issue or a signage issue on Goodman Road or Highway 51, they can tackle that. So basically, they're versatile. What we're trying to do is, at least what I'm trying to do, is build within the department where we have some cross-training. And it's kind of nice where the office manager will be migrating into that rental housing position. So the new person that we get to fill her spot, she can train that person. Because that's one thing we really don't have a lot of, is a lot of cross-training at that front table. We can get by, either myself or Andrew, we can get by for a time. But Tammy does some really good work there at the front counter. So the whole idea is to be able to cross-train to a certain degree. And that's even in the stormwater position, we've put in there, that stormwater administrator position, is that they would be, I don't know if it's licensed or qualified or whatever, to do like mechanical or electrical or plumbing inspections, or and the change would be, that's on there for tomorrow night, that they would, if they don't have that right out the gate from day one, that they could obtain that within a certain amount of time. That would also get some cross coverage there with our building inspector in case he ever needs to be off, or wants to be off or take a vacation or something like that. So we're trying to build that cross connection so there's no drop really in service from the department.
Okay. So my second question
Go ahead.
had to do with the personnel for the stormwater. What does that person do?
Okay, again, a very good question. Basically, the city has a stormwater management program. Some of that is done now through the personnel with Neil Schaefer. Neil Schaefer is an engineering firm out of South Haven. They have other offices in the region, but the city contracts the city engineering department with Neil Schaefer. But they also do some things that they're on parcels. If a development is disturbed and it's 5 acres or more, they do the stormwater inspections for that, because it's basically more of at an engineering type level of inspection. What our department does currently, I'm giving background just to answer your question. Currently is anything that's disturbed on a new project, whether that be a residential site, commercial, and it's less than 5 acres, our building inspector goes out and does stormwater, erosion control, sediment fence, those types of inspections. And so what I've heard from, through Neil Schaefer, is that there's more regulations, more specificity that's coming from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and they're being pushed out to all the states, and then the states are pushing them out to the individual jurisdictions within those states. So in this case, all the cities and counties in Mississippi. So that means there'll be additional things that will be required of the city to do and report to the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality. One of those main things is inspecting a lot of the detention ponds that are put in the commercial areas, the residential areas to slow down drainage, to make sure that they're actually working as they were designed. So those inspections would start to be made. And so we really need a person to be able to do that, and then also do other aspects of the program as well as other inspections. And a big part of the stormwater program is community involvement. That's the thing that we're having a hard time getting people to participate in that. And so we're hoping the stormwater person can designate more time to try to engender, let's say, enthusiasm for stormwater. It's very important, you know, it really is. So that's kind of the idea by that.
Okay, this is what I want to say. In my subdivision, there's like a ditch, and that drainage just goes like basically throughout the entire subdivision. Does the stormwater, is responsible to check to make sure that runoff? Because everything that runs off in my neighborhood come down in front of my property. And it settles, because when we were annexed, they never fixed the drainage system that goes into that ditch. So would that fall under that stormwater person?
I'm thinking it could. Do you have any idea what size of area that it drains as far as that
Goes all
ditch?
the way like about half of the subdivision.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking if it's more than a 5 acre parameter or size or whatever, well, some of the things we'll still have to work out with Neil Schaefer, because they do some things and we do some things, so those things haven't all been developed. But yeah, if you need to bring something to our attention or Neil Schaefer now or whatever, we certainly can look into that and see if there's some issues there. But yeah, that's something that the stormwater administrator could administer, yes, potentially.
Do we have anything else? And do we have a motion to adjourn? Second? All right, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, the same? All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.